On the banks of the Rio Grande, Kalen Carr standing, 2 cultures, 1 society. I'm going to do a movement episode about Kalen. That's going to break the internet.
That's what we should do. We should do a mockumentary.
Yeah. Berkeley born, but world.
Oh, but there was kind of that Berkeley one where he was sitting on the porch of his old house.
Harlem.
Get out of my face, Kalen.
Harlem's own, Goss. You know it.
From New York, you are listening to Extra Time, driven by Continental. From my apartment in Bed-Stuy, I'm Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, Matt Doyle, David Goss, Kalen Carr. I know all of their names. I can recognize them on sight. Fear not. You are part of my heart, boys. What's up? How's it going? How you feeling? Anybody feel good? Anybody feel a little confused? Anybody feel just, a little angry perhaps at the world that they live in? I mean, I think that's okay too.
Yeah, all of the above, just floating through.
Yeah. It's a flat sand of emotions, isn't it?
I am shook by the start of this podcast. Angry, confused. Go ahead.
How's the alcohol supply?
Holding steady. Okay. Holding steady. Took a hit over the past 4 or 5 days, but I have enough to see us through these troubled times. It's been a weird week. It's been a week unlike any other in Major League Soccer history. I know that y'all talked about it on Thursday's show. We should say again what happened on Wednesday night was remarkable. I'd like to personally thank the players for their courage and leadership, and I think that their protest made the world a better place in more than just marginal ways. And so on top of the anger and confusion about the world today, there is a big old seed of hope that I have. And so that's what I'm holding on to these days during these troubled 2020 times.
Kalen, we kind of had our moment on Thursday to talk through all that. I know that via the movement and all the things that you do at MLS and in your personal life, this is super important to you. Is there any feelings that you'd want to share before we jump in and talk soccer? And of course, we are going to talk Real Salt Lake, folks. We have Brian Dunseth on the show. You probably know what's going on. If you don't, I'll walk you through in just 1 second. But first, Kalen, the floor is sort of yours here at the start, if you want it.
Yeah, no, nothing really to add to it. Just supporting the players, and I think it's like Doyle said, it's historic. I don't think there's ever been any a stoppage where the players just refuse to play in MLS history in 25 years. So, I think they've made their reasons pretty clear. So, yeah, I've been interviewing some of them for an upcoming piece that may come out sometime soon. So, I'll keep you tuned on that. I'll keep you updated.
That's the chapter book that just keeps having additional chapters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's been a weird ride down here in the basement.
I do like the new art that you have, though. People are watching on YouTube. I think the España poster that you're rocking is a very swell addition for you. As I said, we'll get to the RSL stuff, but I thought that maybe we might just start with something exciting and happy and joyful in the world of North American soccer and American soccer in particular before we get to the prospect of, and it seems the guarantee of change at Real Salt Lake with their owner who's now on leave, Dell Loy Hansen. Weston McKennie is on PJ's rolling to Turin to sign with Juventus. Smiling about it, having a good time, loan with an option to buy. This could be up to 25 million euros. I mean, this is the sort of move that as American soccer fans, I think we both dream about. And then also because we're American soccer fans, like dread and have like is the shoe going to fall in the other way sort of side to us. But oh my God, Weston McKennie is signing with Juventus. Like he has an opportunity to not just play in the Champions League as he did with Schalke, but to challenge for Champions League.
And then because it's Juventus,
it will never
ultimately come up short.
Yes, exactly. It will never happen. But the dream is there, damn it.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's not Southampton. This is not. The level, like what happened here? What do you think about it? Like, just give me the gut, Doyle.
Juventus are one of the 6 biggest soccer clubs in the world. It's Real Madrid and Barcelona, Manchester United and Liverpool still. Manchester United. I know they've had a tough 5 years, but they are still one of that group. And then Bayern Munich and Juventus. To see an American not just move to one of these clubs, but to move to one of these clubs for potentially $25 million, and to do so in a situation where he's going to get playing time. And he might not walk in and be an immediate starter. He might end up being more of a utility guy his first year, but he's going to be on the field for Juventus, who have won more Serie A titles than the next two winningest teams combined. It's huge. And I'll put my hand up and say I never saw it coming for Weston McKennie. Like I thought he was a really good player at times for Schalke with some notable flaws, and I thought that would limit his ceiling. But I guess the powers that be at Juve see enough in terms of his tools and his ability to bring them to bear, especially over the past about 15 games with Schalke. It looked like he leveled up, so that they said, yeah, we're remaking the team and we want him to be a part of it. So I'm happy for him. I'm happy for U.S. soccer, and it's exciting, man. Like like we have like Weston McKennie obviously didn't play in MLS, but he is a product of that FC Dallas Academy, and now we have MLS academies have put guys into Bayern Munich and Juventus, and maybe we'll see Tyler Adams move on to a similar sized club. Not that RB Leipzig is small by any means at this point, but we're getting and obviously Giorena with Dortmund. Like we're getting some real proof of concept now. So beyond being happy for Weston McKennie, I'm really happy that we're getting a lot of kids blazing a trail to the highest levels of the game. The trail that started for them in MLS academies. It's a moment I've been waiting for.
And while we've seen Davies, and I think he is, we've gone on and on and on about how special he is. You don't actually know until you get there. And people at that time, you have to remember, said about him, oh, why is he going to a club that big? It's too big for him. I don't think he's going to be able to make that jump. And I would caution about making that same sort of leap with McKennie as well, because, I think he has some real qualities that, especially when you get around better players and you get in a better club and a better environment, that Schalke team really struggled. And so if he gets into a really good circumstance and they're able to accentuate his strengths, and then he can develop, as we've seen Alphonso Davies playing to his strength and then being surrounded by such quality on the pitch. I think he's got a chance. So I'm equally excited to watch him play. And I was just reflecting on seeing Corey Gibbs on that private jet with him, which was awesome. But like Corey was a top player I played with in Chicago, and a guy that went over to Europe and as an American, but we didn't really see. And it was after college. He went to Brown University. And so just to see the way that the pathway for young American players to break into Europe at an earlier age, and then to make a big leap even, as we've seen several of these guys do, is awesome to see and great for the U.S. men's national team.
Yeah, I agree with you, Kalen. You look at players, one, you always have to take a move like this because, as Doyle said, my pool's a little bigger. I think there are 8 teams in the world. Doyle says 6. That's fine, though. Either way, there's a class of teams on this.
Wait, who are the other two?
I would put PSG in there at this point, and I think Chelsea or Man City has a claim as well. But there are 8 teams in the world that everyone roots for and everyone watches, and Juve is one of them. And it's new to have an American on them. You always have to take an opportunity when you get it. I agree with Kalen in that I think his skill set, the way he wants to play, will actually fit better because I think he can compete at that level that they need. But he was required to do so much at Schalke, and there was nothing around him to help him, that now his job individually is going to be a lot simpler. He just has to do it at a higher level. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens. But it's exciting to see a player like this get that opportunity. And now we all get to watch Juve games with something to watch for the next year at least.
The biggest shock out of all of this is Schalke actually had a very good young player that they sold for a profit instead of letting him go for free.
For nothing.
Schalke have missed out on like $250 million in transfer fees over the past 10 years. So good job, Schalke. And I'll always root for Schalke a little bit because they're one of the teams that have historically taken a chance on U.S. talent. So hopefully they can use this to get their finances kind of straight. Hopefully they avoid relegation, which is a very real chance for them this year. And hopefully we'll see more guys taking that pathway to the Rhineland and then, up to the highest levels of professional soccer.
Get your alerts set up.
But what a turn. I mean, we were talking Southampton, Villa, which would have been awesome. But then just all of a sudden you're like, oh,
you're
man.
like, oh, of course, he's going to Juve. He played Southampton and Real Madrid off of Juve to get the deal he wanted. Duh.
I just like his self-belief. It's clear that he's like, I'm going here to do the business. And I think he has reason to believe it. I mean, if he looks around at his little kind of peer core group in Europe, when you mention those names, whether it be Tyler or Pulisic or who those two were boys for a long time as they came up in Germany, or now Gio Reyna, like Weston McKennie's like, you guys might not believe in me, to the general sort of cacophony of people that are saying maybe this is too much for me. But there is nothing about his demeanor, his play, anything he's shown over his young career that leads you to believe that he has anything but 100% belief that this is going to be his spot.
I will be interested. Go ahead. Sorry.
Get the call, you go. Like,
oh, hell yeah.
Come on. People are like, oh, should you go? Maybe you're not going to get enough playing time. What are you talking about? Like, if you get the ultimate in your career path, you're not who sits back and says, oh, crap, maybe I'm not good enough. Like, I hope nobody out there is doing that. Bet on yourself. Like, anybody listening who's thinking about that, like, bet on yourself, because even if it goes bad, Southampton's still going to be there. You're still a Juve player.
I wonder how this will affect the transfer market, though, with MLS players, because it definitely does feel like North American players right now are trending. And when you see the success of the big clubs that these guys are going to and having success, I'll just be interested to see if that trickles down, and if the price tag or the interest or the awareness of some of these young players who are rumored to be going abroad actually matriculates, or if people are looking at these special players as outliers or outside of that.
Oh, by the way, we had a ton of teenagers score goals in MLS this weekend. We are going to talk all about that. Maybe some of those guys, let's just say Gianluca Busio, maybe Serie A is a little bit more of a destination now. Who knows? We shall see. By the way, Timothy Weah back in the swing of things for Lille. He got on the field. He was a substitute, and Jonathan David started that match. So if you're talking about North American talent, there's two more to think about as well. Okay, let's get to the news of the day in Major League Soccer. Brian Dunseth is going to help walk us through all this. You know that he knows just about everything going on the ground at Real Salt Lake. Just a quick rundown here. Of course, Wednesday night, the boycotts, Real Salt Lake, LAFC among the teams that did not play on that night. Dell Loy Hansen, the owner of Real Salt Lake, came out the next day on radio and had some comments about that. There was a lot of pushback on those comments, which I will just come out and say that I disagreed with, and I think that's a pretty universal stance for most people within this league. Josie Altidore had something to say, Chris Wondolowski, Bob Bradley, a lot of public figures coming out and saying, no, this is not where we personally stand. We think this is wrong. Later in the afternoon, The Athletic, you probably saw the headlines, Andy Williams going on record with some really disturbing allegations about Dell Loy Hansen's behavior. On and on and on it goes. And then as of Sunday, Dell Loy Hansen announcing he would take a leave of absence per his own statement, and Major League Soccer's, and he will sell his teams. That's Real Salt Lake, Real Monarchs in USL Championship, and the Utah Royals in NWSL. A lot of people reportedly interested. Josie Altidore tweeting about it. JJ Watt tweeting about it. There's some folks in Salt Lake City already saying, hey, we want in on this as well. So a big TBD on the future of these clubs. But let's get to Dunny. It's an AT&T call to the field. Dunny, what's up, man?
Not much. Not much out here. I would just maybe describe it as the craziest 72 hours that I've ever experienced since my start back in July of 1997. So yeah, not a lot coming out of Utah lately, right?
Yeah, I laugh because I don't know what else to do at this point. It's just overwhelming the past, I don't know, you say 72 hours, but it's been more than that. It's been months at this point. It just keeps piling on. We kind of told the quick story here as far as what's happened and what's going to happen now with Dell Loy Hansen saying he will sell the club and being on a leave of absence. Let's just have you walk us through your perspective, and I'm okay with repeats here, of what has happened with this club and with ownership.
So I would start with Wednesday night, heading to the stadium and knowing that the game in Orlando had kicked off. And by the time I'd left my house and gotten to the stadium, there was my phone was blown up, much like everybody's. And the moment that I walked into the stadium and I saw that Inter Miami Atlanta had not kicked off, I recognized, okay, we've got a serious threat to this Real Salt Lake LAFC game. And that's when I saw the coaching staff for LAFC come in, and Zachy Abdel, who's the goalkeeper coach, was my former goalkeeper coach at Fullerton. And I was like, Zachy, are we on or not? Are we off? And he's like, eh. And so then I saw John Thorrington kind of walking the field, and his phone was just pressed to his ear. And then that's when I saw Nadim Onuoha and Zach McMath come out, and they had a conversation with Mark Anthony Kaye and Jordan Harvey, with McMath and Harvey, the player union reps for each individual team. And I could just tell by the body language it wasn't going to happen. And full disclosure, over the course of the last year and a half, I've gotten to know Nadim Onuoha pretty well. So I texted him when he was on his way in, and he said, yeah, game's off. And I said, all right, cool. But I need to get you on camera because I would love to have you explain to the fan base exactly what's happening, because I can't do a good enough job in a situation like this because I'm not internally involved in any of these conversations. So Nadim and Mark Anthony Kaye jumped on camera. I thought did a very, very good job of explaining what was happening in real time and the decisions behind kind of falling in line with the NBA on Wednesday night. Now, I got a text the following morning. It was about 8:45 saying Andy Carroll, the chief business officer, and Dell Loy Hansen are going to jump on a local radio show called Radio from Hell on X96. That radio show is underneath the umbrella of Broadway Media. As we have found out, I guess everyone else has found out, the joke here in Utah is that Utah owns the mountains and Dell Loy Hansen really owns everything in between, along with the Miller family. So Broadway Media is basically like the hip hop station, the rock station, the sports station, and they're all kind of based downtown. So Dell Loy jumps on with X96 in the morning, does this interview, probably about 15, 20 minutes, profoundly disappointed, profoundly offended, used the analogy of being stabbed and pulling the sword out, and was very businesslike in his determination of how he was offended by the way things happened on Wednesday night, talking about the potential loss of sponsorship, the loss of revenue, and how he felt disrespected as an owner from the players themselves, without kind of recognizing the bigger picture. As soon as that went to break, guys, that's when my phone went nuts. Everything went sideways. He had ended up stepping in to talk to the coaching staff, and that's when I was told Don Garber gave a phone call, and that was kind of the start of all of this unraveling. Later in the afternoon, kind of this wild moment where he ends up going on Spencer Checkett's radio show on ESPN 700 in the afternoon. I was on air with Tony Miola on our show on Sirius, and I'm like watching it on my back, like watching everybody kind of tweet it out. And at that point, I recognized very quickly, and it's kind of that old adage, if you don't get it right the first time, you got to try to get it right the second time. There was emotion. There were, I guess, rolling back of apologies or accusations, some tears involved. And at that point, you knew that he had gotten his tail handed to him by the commissioner. And that's where we all kind of figured, all right, well, maybe there's an opportunity, because there's some really tough things to absorb based on that first interview. In the culture that we're in right now, especially with social media, the digital share, the hold accountable culture is what I'll call it. There was a lot of vitriol headed towards Dell Loy's way. And that was before I got the text that keep your antennas up. There's an article coming out in The Athletic. And that's when texting with a few people and then reading the article in real time. I don't know if you guys have ever been in the middle of the show and you're just like this scrolling and scrolling and scrolling.
All the
like,
time.
Oh my word, what is happening right now? So at that point, I think we all recognized very quickly that I don't want to say the end was in sight per se, but this was going to be almost inevitable what was going to happen. And I personally didn't see a way back the moment that Andy Williams went on record with some of those horrifying remarks that were made inside of the organization.
So what next for soccer in Utah? And I say soccer in Utah because though we talk about Real Salt Lake, you have Real Monarchs in USL Championship, you have the Utah Royals in NWSL, you have the facilities, you have the academy, you have all the things that make up this umbrella of Utah soccer. What next? I mean, who could buy this thing? How fast could it move?
Yeah.
What will happen to all the facilities is a question a lot of people are asking.
And I think on top of Dunny just explained a little, because we have a little idea of it. I would argue RSL, this whole soccer group, is almost larger in the way it infects across Utah in the soccer sphere than other clubs, because of the land they own, the schools they own, the buildings they've built?
Yeah, so let me start with, I think the actions taken by Major League Soccer, the NWSL and the USL, as well as the organization to put out the statement in which they did, was really, really important, because I think it wasn't just the original investigation. It's kind of the ongoing investigation. It's the upcoming investigation. It is former employees that have something that they want to now put their name to. And it's not just, as you said, Real Salt Lake or Utah Royals or Real Monarchs or the Academy. This umbrella, this is Dell Loy Hansen is a billionaire. And one of the reasons, I mean, he's a billionaire like 4 or 5 times over, self-made from Logan, Utah. And his monopoly has been commercial real estate, has been apartment complexes, has, downtown buildings. But he's so incredibly intelligent business-wise when you think about the LLCs, whether it's our production, our television trucks for Real Salt Lake. It is the front of jersey sponsor for the Utah Royals, the sidearm sponsor, Royal Title. They call it vertical integration, and top to bottom. You're right. I mean, it is a web that is really entangled tightly. So what this umbrella looks like, I mean, again, you're talking Real Monarchs, you're talking Utah Royals, you're talking about the Real Salt Lake, you're talking about Rio Tinto Stadium, you're talking about America First Field where the Royals train, you're talking about the Harriman Academy where the Real Salt Lake Royals and Real Monarchs are, and the Academy. There's facilities, living facilities on site, the fields, the stadiums for the USL. And then there's the land. There's the land all the way around that he's been picking up. And so radio side, the broadcast side of ESPN 700, Spencer Checkett's was, that's Dave Checkett's son. Dell Loy wrestled the club away from him. So yeah, I don't know where exactly this is all going to end, but I think by me kind of stuttering my way through trying to explain how tangled of a web this is, yeah, absolutely. Now, Gas, to your point, Larry H. Miller, Gail Miller, the Millers themselves, they own the Utah Jazz. They own the Salt Lake Bees, which is kind of the AAA version of the Anaheim Angels. They've got monopoly money as well. You've got Ryan Smith from Qualtrics. He's worth $1.8 billion. He's 42 years old. He's from just south of the mountain. They're about to take Qualtrics public. He's going to be monopoly money for life if he's not already. And there's interest, I think, from all over. Donovan Mitchell has jumped in. I know he's on his rookie contract. He's not working on that Harden money. JJ Watt jumped in yesterday. Josie's talked about it. I think there's plenty of interest. For me, I think my hope is that regardless of what happens, what the owner's conversation is, that MLS Commissioner Don Garber and the owners of Major League Soccer, the Board of Governors, make sure that this franchise, this organization stays here in this community because it has deep ties. They've done a lot of great things. Referee education, giving back to public schools, license plates, all of these little things behind the scenes. It is an important, I guess, DNA, fabric, culture of what these clubs have meant locally. And I would hope that 1A is whoever comes in invests the way this club hasn't been invested in on the field, but more importantly, stays in this Salt Lake community.
Can you tell us, Dunny, we're talking about the future here, and it's also ephemeral and it's hard to really wrap your mind around, but what is very real is sort of the mood within the club itself. I mean, you talked about Natum and what a human being he is. And I saw that the academy teams, I think they boycotted training on Friday, by the way, in solidarity as well. And there's this huge, as you said, web between NWSL and USL and MLS. Like, what is the feeling on the ground? What are the players feeling like? What is the staff feeling like? How are you feeling? I mean, this is just like, after months of emotional turmoil, this is just a huge wrenching at sort of the core of these clubs and this culture.
Yeah, and by the way, you talked about the academy, you talked about Netum. I'd also throw in Cesara King from the Utah Royals, because as a rookie, she came out with a really strong statement, which I think deserves the spotlight, because it took a lot of guts to throw that out there publicly. Yeah, it wasn't fun going on television on Saturday and kind of speaking to this, knowing I was kind of on an island But I knew who I was talking to and what I was talking about because this fan base had a lot of questions. I would gently remind everybody, unfortunately, this isn't the first time that this club dealt with the Mike Pecky situation last summer, and give credit to the players and the staff, to Freddie Juarez and his coaching staff, to this group of players, because they ended up in third place in the Western Conference, won a playoff game, eventually lost to Seattle Sounders in Seattle, and kept and maintained that singular focus of control the controllables. So I think that was important. To see what a wild game that was in Portland for a team that has never, I mean, they broke the record for shots, 30 shots in Portland is one thing. Kind of defensively broke down a few times, but to see Giuseppe Rossi and Sam Johnson score goals in the dying moments of the match to get a 4-4 draw, I think, it would have been forgivable for them to fold. It would have been forgivable to say they lost the game because of all these circumstances, to not play on Wednesday, to not have training on Thursday, to practice on Friday and the fly on Saturday with all of this stuff going on. And then to not know until yesterday morning, on Sunday morning, that Dell Loy had officially announced that he is going to sell the team, that he notified Major League Soccer, that he sent the coaching staff and the players a note. I was hoping that if there was going to be some type of way out of this, that Dell Loy would have to face this group of players, and this group of players would be able to say what they needed to say without fear of retribution. And they never did get that opportunity because Dell Loy did not face the players. So the feeling around the club, from the players' perspective, I think would be relief. I don't think anybody kind of wins in this situation. I think there's kind of relief in this situation that at least there's an idea of a pathway forward. I think the bigger question, guys, is like, what's next? So the Utah soccer executives, whether you're talking about Andy Carroll, the chief business officer, Craig Martin, Rob Zarkos, Mary Van Mindy from RSL Foundation, kind of these silos are the ones that are making decisions. And what do those collective or individual decisions look like right now? Because in the short term, with the help from Major League Soccer, I would assume lawyers kind of vetting out what this process looks like with Rob Zarkos for potential owners, this 6-month window where that Dell Loy Hansen has the ability to sell by himself. And if not, then it goes back to Major League Soccer. Ultimately, what does the vetting process look like for Major League Soccer and the Board of Governors when they're looking at any potential new owners? Is it ultimately the most amount of money? Is it the right ownership coming into play? Because I think the one thing, if this organization wants to be a real competitor, not just a Real Salt Lake, hey, we're going to make the playoffs, hey, we're going to make a solid run, we're a small market team. If you want to get into the conversation about kind of the LAFCs or the Atlanta Uniteds or the Toronto FCs or even the Seattles and the Portlands that are spending real money, whoever comes in, I think, is looking at the potential of losses anywhere between 10 and 20 million per year just to put together that type of team that has that type of difference makers in those type of positions. And then the sponsorship. What does sponsorship look like behind the scenes currently versus what would sponsorship look like if you had the Millers involved? And could you roll that sponsorship? If you had Qualtrics involved, if you had new ownership involved, new people inside the front office, does that change kind of the scope of sponsorship commercially? So a lot of questions and a lot of unknowns. And I think from the players' perspective, they just focus on what they can, and that's just playing. And there's not a lot of time to focus on anything else with the way that this schedule is laid out for the rest of the season.
I want to ask you. Sorry, I was gonna say I want to ask you about the players because I am sort of fascinated by this team. But before, is there anything else off the field that you want to talk about that we don't know about? You've known guys like Andy Williams for a while. You've seen sort of this go on and people get hurt by the situation that existed, and the team kind of fight through it on the field a lot, which maybe covered up for people outside what was going on inside. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest here on your one of 85 radio stop today?
What I would say is I don't think we're anywhere close to a finalization of whatever this looks like. Because there, like I said during the broadcast the other day, I think there's been a lot of really good men and women that have passed through the halls of Rio Tinto Stadium and worked in that organization that are no longer there. And I think there's a lot of incredible people that are still there right now. And they want the best. They want the best for whatever the badge stood for, kind of that identity of RSL family back in the day. Because if you think about it, there's been a lot of big names and important names attached to this organization. Are we anywhere close? I'm like with you guys. I hear all the conversations. I hear, I get the text messages. Hey, have you heard this? Hey, have you heard that? I don't think we're near the end. I think there's the moment that Dell Loy went. I've been kind of using this thing where the moment that Dell Loy went on air on Thursday, looking for his pound of flesh, I think ultimately it was his own pound of flesh. And I think there's going to be a lot of people, even with this announcement that, hey, I'm going to sell the team. There's a lot of businesses. There's a lot of businesses that people were involved with that for one reason or another feel as though they've been hard done or done wrong. So I think I would be naive to think that this is it. Like that's done. There's a line that's been drawn. I just don't see how that line has been drawn, because I think there's so many other people that now, because of Andy, and I give so much credit to Andy Williams for deciding that this was his time to tell his truth, because I think this opened up Pandora's box for questions and conversations that probably should have been had a long time ago to be had in real time and in the future.
So the future of all these clubs in soccer in Utah, that will be something we'll talk about for a long, long time.
Yeah.
You mentioned the players, though, Dave, and that's where I wanted to go. And I wanted to go to one player in particular, and I know that he's not isolated, and there's a lot of strong personalities in that locker room. But sometimes you come to know a person, or whether it's sort of from afar or up close, and you just can't help but sort of be wowed and impressed and admire them so deeply. And Neda Monuoha is that guy to me. Mm-hmm. What he's done with furloughed workers there, what he's done with sort of his platform, everything that he has represented, I think has just been so incredible. And I wonder what your perspective is within this little bubble, and what additional insight you can give us into the presence that he's brought to this club.
I joke with him all the time that his English accent, I wish I had it, because it'd make me sound way more intelligent than my 13-year-old girl's voice. I think he's nothing short of incredible. Individually, he decided that the moment that workers at Real Salt Lake, Utah Royals, Real Monarchs, the academy that were furloughed, he started putting together a plan to help financially all of those people. And he didn't do it for the public. He did it for the club itself. And I can't give him enough credit, because I think it's nothing short of extraordinary. The voice of the club, absolutely. As you guys know, we deal with this each and every week, and it doesn't matter if it's the MLS level or if it's down to the individual club level. It's easy to step in front of the camera when everything's great, right? Okay, I broke a record, I scored a goal, I got the game winner, we won. But when you mess up, if things go wrong, if there's a tough message that needs to get across, who are those people that are willing to step in front of the microphone? And that's why I think he's always, despite the worst possible scenario for him or for the club collectively, he's willing to step in front of the microphone. And I think that's nothing short of extraordinary. Quick little side note. Wednesday night after the game, I was talking with David James, my play-by-play partner, and he's involved with the Granite Education Foundation here in Utah, which is basically from one side of the mountain all the way to the other side of the mountain. And the focus is meals for children, backpacks, school supplies, especially kind of in the virtual learning that we're involved with. We were walking to the car Wednesday night talking about what can we do? Everyone's talking about what can we do? What can we do? How can we be a part of systemic change? I called Nedum Thursday morning, and in the span of about 2 hours on Tuesday afternoon, DJ Nedum and I are going to go to the Granite Education Foundation and start the conversation of using our platform, using our connections to try to help the Granite Education Foundation with just food, breakfast, lunches, dinners for those children here in Utah that are in need, and kind of rolling that into backpacks and supplies. And it just goes to show, within the course of 2 hours, kind of doing something positive and using the platforms. And with David James and myself and Nedum, trying to give back, trying to do something positive. And Nedum, through nothing to do with the organization, jumped on board immediately. So I think it just kind of shows it's another layer of who he is and the importance he's been to Real Salt Lake, coming over from QPR, his background at Sunderland, his background at Man City.
I wanted to finish you on soccer because I've really enjoyed what Freddie Farres has done over the last few months, but especially this season. there's been games where RSL haven't been great, but there's games like Portland, which is mistakes. But you mentioned the shots; they're so active, and we always joke TITS with RSL because you can't get away from it. But it really
team
feels...
is the star. Team is the star, folks out there who are like...
It was going in a much different directions. Like
sure.
Yeah.
But it really feels like when this team is good on the field, RSL, who they are this year, is they're active. It's coming from every angle. Everyone's involved. They seem to enjoy playing together. Yeah. And then Freddie Juarez always has 1 or 2 wrinkles for each game. But this team has the ability to be one of the more entertaining and competitive teams in MLS right now.
So I've been saying for a smaller team that hasn't spent an obscene amount of money, they have done really well. And each year, I think, especially with the coaching change and the general manager change, because Pecky and Weibel both gone at virtually the same time, Freddie Juarez, Elliot Fall, Tony Beltran coming in and being the right-hand man alongside with Elliot, they have figured out a way to build a roster that was stronger than last season's roster. And they ended up in 3rd place in the Western Conference. To your point, I go back to a week ago in Colorado. The fact that they lose Douglas Martinez to concussion issue after 12 minutes. And in the second half, he takes off Everton Luiz. He leaves on Paulo Ruiz. And then Michael Chang comes on. And he gets a goal and 2 assists. Justin Merrim, a goal and 2 assists. And then this week to go to Portland and see the players rewarded who finished the game in Colorado for unanswered goals, to then turn to Giuseppe Rossi and Sam Johnson, who were frustrated with their lack of minutes, to come in and be down literally in the 89th minute 4-2, to then level the scoreline 4-4 within 2.5 minutes. Players are competitive and in this roster fighting tooth and nail to be in the starting 11. And yet Freddie's substitution tactics are knocking it out of the park. I think he outmaneuvered Robin, he outmaneuvered Gio, and give credit to these players because you got to take your chance, right? When you're frustrated and you finally get your opportunity, even if it's less than 10 minutes, can you take your chance? And all these guys have taken their chance. So a good building block for a very difficult upcoming week, Wednesday against Seattle and on the road at Minnesota United.
All right, Dunny, thank you for your time, man. Tell people how they can listen to you, watch you, follow you on Twitter.
Socials, just at Brian Dunseth, daily on Sirius, at Sirius XM FC, channel 157, 4 o'clock to 7 p.m. Eastern, usually with old meat hands, Tony Miola, Monday through Friday.
Oh, he's got the pause, man. Thank you so much, Dunny, for your insight. I'm sure we'll be in touch soon, man.
Sounds good. See you guys.
All right, big thanks to Dunny for sharing what he knows, what he doesn't know, and what may be in Utah with that soccer scene. There's a lot to unpack, and I don't think we can unpack it right now. This story is going to be developing and continuing, so we will follow it as it continues. Let's talk about the soccer with it, because I think he was right to call out, and so were you, Dave, the effort that they put in Portland. I mean, the end of this game is incredible. Giuseppe Rossi, his first goal in Major League Soccer, we've been waiting for that one for a while, but a touch of class, man. The touch to spin around and then the reverse ball back across the goal was beautiful. And then Corey Baird went full on Messi to feed Sam Johnson. I mean, he took the whole damn team. It was inspirational, honestly, at the end of this game.
But to Dunny's, or to what we were talking about, it wasn't just the end of the game. They gave up an early goal off a really bad mistake, and they immediately just blitzed Portland. And they put I think he said it was their most shots ever. They put chances on goal. They were super active. Every time they fell behind, were back in this game immediately. And I think a lot of that goes down to the culture that's quickly been built under Freddie Juarez. And a lot of these guys played USL or academy soccer under Freddie Juarez. And so I think there's something special culturally going on in the team group. One, to be able to react to everything that's happened over the past week, travel, play well, care enough to play. Let's be real. It's everyone's job, but still in a time like this, it's really hard to turn it on. And then the way they do it and the way they play for each other and how active they are. And one of the things we've always asked, like, well, when will they have a center forward? How do they replace specific attributes from a Jefferson Severino, whatever it is? And right now, it just feels like they have to have 9 guys on their game, and they do fairly often to play well enough. And that's what's really fun about watching them play.
Good draw. Good draw. All right. RSL, I mean, the soccer is one thing, but it's just so much right now. Let's move on here, and let's talk about Doyle's let's say your latest is obsession is the wrong word, but your Daryl Dike love is starting to reach real heights here, Doyle. I mean, it's happened quickly. It's been a whirlwind. I know you were about him when he was at Virginia too. Orlando is still sort of Orlando, but now they have a win against Atlanta United, 3-1. Did it in Atlanta. It was a beautiful thing, and Daryl Dike is a big part of what's happening here. And he's scoring goals, and he's creating space, and he is unplayable in a lot of ways, whether that be his movement or his physicality or just his intelligence and seeing where the game's going to go and being that step ahead. I mean, it was a one-touch pass. It was a finish. It was, as you said in your top tier video, Doyle, gravity on the set piece.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the Daryl Dike show right now for Orlando City, and that's interesting because it wasn't at the beginning of the year.
No, and there's almost always an adjustment period for players coming out of college and into MLS. Even super talented players like Daryl Dike. There's been a bunch of rookies, Henry Kessler, Mauricio Pineda. There are rookies around the league who have adjusted pretty quickly. But even so, there's almost always like 5-6 games where you're like, ooh, they don't know what they're doing out there. And DK kind of, as soon as he's gotten the chance to be a starter, has shown that he does know what he's doing. And he is, as you said, unplayable in a lot of ways because he is built like a linebacker, and so like that makes it very tough for center backs. But he combines that with he has really soft feet, and he has really good awareness of where the next pass is. And we saw that on his secondary assist against Atlanta United, where he was able to feel the pressure coming from Anton Walks, understand that George Bello had been a step slow in getting back and tracking Benji Michel, and just laying Michel into the box with perfectly weighted little slip pass. 1 touch or 2 touches later, it's in the back of the net.
Hey, nice little touch there from Michel, or awareness to square that one too.
Well, Chris Mueller was saying afterward, he's like, I was screaming as loud as I could to square it, but it was super unselfish play from Michel and DK. It's fun and it's exciting to me because my long-standing opinion has been that domestic players are underrated in this league. Has been that MLS coaches and general managers are so enamored of bringing in, well, it used to be veteran players from overseas, that these are guys who eat up minutes that would be best served giving them to young players and developing those players. And you play them through the rough patches, because on the other side, all of those rough patches, you get guys who can, make plays like what you're seeing out of Orlando City. And the wonderful thing about Oscar Pareja is that he is sort of compressing that timeline for DK, for Michel, and we see that Chris Mueller has leveled up as well. I'm excited about
João Moutinho as well.
João Moutinho as well, he's not American, but he did come through the college system, and he is a number 1 draft pick who, until he got hurt, was absolutely playing like that. I love this. I think the development of players is one of the most exciting things that MLS can do and has done. And DK, because of his all-around talent, is one of the guys I'm most excited about. But it happened in the scope of a weekend, and really this whole summer with the MLS's back tournament, where it's more guys getting these chances and capitalizing on them than we've ever seen at any point in MLS history.
Can we just also give a shout out to Daryl Dike for the celebration on his goal?
The one against Nashville? Yeah.
Yeah. Like earlier in the week, he had gone off. He had the headpiece. He goes with the mummy. I mean, it's that combination of things. It's on the field, but, maybe I'm like simplistic in the way that my fandom works, but I also want personality. I want to see these guys enjoy the moment, see these guys take advantage of their time in the spotlight, and show who they are, not just as soccer players, but as people. I mean, what does Daryl Dike change with Orlando City? Because it's a team that made a run to a final. They might look even better with Daryl Dike, certainly on this form in the lineup. Nani didn't start this game. Yeah. The guy that I'm saying could be an MVP candidate in this league if he was focused every game. What changes now with Orlando City thanks to Daryl Dike?
Well, that was the one thing we talked about from the MLS's back tournament, was how good they looked, how improved they were. But if they only had a number 9, and somebody that could really, get on the end of things or fit the system well and get goals. And I thought Tesho did a good job, but he seemed a little bit better suited to kind of coming off the bench or being a spot starter and, using his intelligence and movements in the box and experience. But from the beginning, he hasn't found the same success and been able to replicate that as he's had off the bench. And so we thought, to Doyle's point, that maybe Orlando could go out into the open market and sign maybe a big name number 9, or, maybe not even a big name, but somebody else that wasn't already within the side. And then we saw Dike emerge and even find success without Nani. And that's the big thing for me that was really impressive. Was I figured that maybe his success would come as a result of having great wing play, and that they needed just somebody in the box to finish the action. And there's still some points where he can improve. I think Doyle had a good video that came out, or that he was tweeting, just about, picking the right run at certain times and finding that back post or the near post when you're the lone striker. But he has shown, even without Nani from the start in this one, that he is able to be productive and a guy not just that can finish, but a guy you can play through and can facilitate and make the wingers better. So that was really impressive. And look, there's going to be ups and downs with young players, and he's definitely in a high right now. The question is just, can he continue this? Can he just continue to build on that? But he's looked great.
20
his
years
brother
old.
was a good player, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
His brother is one of those players who never got enough of a chance in MLS.
Sure.
Bright Dike should. I'm not saying, I don't think he was, like, his feet weren't as good as Daryl's are. So he was never going to be that level of a fulcrum or a playmaker. But for like 4 or 5 years there, every team he was on was bringing in my opinion, marginal guys to play over him and never giving him enough of a shot. And so I'm hoping that one of the ways this league has progressed over the past 10 years is that, whether it's Daryl Dike in Orlando or Henry Kessler in New England, or hopefully Ryan Raposo in Vancouver, that these guys get a legitimate shot, and we just don't automatically assume that the player you're going to go out on the market and sign is going to be a better soccer player. It's like we've just overlooked so much talent here, and it feels like that's starting to change, and that gets me fired up.
Is that Danny Coverman's shade that I was hearing there about Bright Dike, or am I reaching there?
It doesn't matter. Anyone who didn't go to UConn is going to be marginal that came in. So
he had some injuries too. He had some.
Yeah. No, for sure. Like there was a moment, I think, with Portland where it was like he was about to break through, and then he did his ACL. He was never quite the same guy.
Chris Boyd shade. Yes, yeah. I'm here for
Chris Boyd shade.
I love we went down the.
Why
Bright
does it have
Dike.
to be about the shade, Weeby? Come on, man.
Yeah, man.
Weeby loves narratives.
Yeah, I do. Let's hit this narrative. It wrote it for me, man. 11 American teenagers start. You had goals by Daryl Dike, who's 20. Brendan Aaronson got one. He's 19. Omir Fernandez is 21. He got one. Jesus Ferreira was assisted by Ricardo Pepi. They're 36 years old combined. I'm almost 36. Hazzani Dotson, he's 23, left-footed banger. Cole Bassett, 19, roofs it. Gianluca Busio from distance. Cade Cowell, he's 16. Looks like he's going on like 22. Yeah, what a weekend. What a weekend for young players in MLS. And as it continued, you're like, oh, the momentum is growing. Oh, everybody's getting a piece. Dave, which one got you the most jacked up? I know Doyle's got to sit on this one over here. We gave him the Daryl Dike time.
I'd say all of it. One.
No.
But one of the things that stood out to me, Doyle kind of talked about the full circle from Bright Dike to Daryl Dike, was Cade Cowell scores this goal. Phenomenal finish. Creates the opportunity himself, curls it into the far corner in a game against a rival, whether there are fans there or not, and then gets a big hug from Tommy Thompson. And about 5 years ago, if Tommy Thompson had a shot on goal, Weeby would have done 40 minutes about the Thompson train. And now you've got a 16-year-old who actually scored a goal in this game. Not to throw shade at Tommy, because I love what he's done with his career. But it just shows you those moments. And it's a weird year. Obviously, there's so many games coming up. You've got more subs. You've got extended rosters. So guys are going to get opportunities. The other thing, which I think we've mentioned on the show, is most of these players that would have played in USL cannot, because they can't return back to the MLS team, and they have to be part of the rosters because of quarantine and all that stuff. But I also wonder if there's a situation where without having fans in the stadium, it's less of a step up, or there's, that moment for a player where you're excited to play with the first team. You can't believe you're starting in an MLS game, but maybe without the intimidation of the crowd there, these players are just that little bit more confident and comfortable in the setting because they train with these guys all the time and they played at MLS's back and they've played in preseason games. And it seems like these players feel a little bit or look more confident in these games, whatever it is. So it was pretty epic to see this from Cal. He didn't do a ton in the run of play. Most of the attack was down the right side for San Jose, but that's to Almeida making it simple for him in his first game. Press when we're off the ball, nowhere to be. You have Nick Lima behind you who can support you. Arahu's been good, but Felcher didn't get forward as much, so he had less of a role defensively, and then he was ready to take his moment.
Play your kids, Kalen. That's your life motto. So,
absolutely. I'm the one I'm still most focused on is Brendan Aaronson, and I think we talked a lot about, can he step up and continue to not just play well or be dangerous or get on the ball, but can it end in a goal or an assist? And this is a game where Philly, I think, is also getting to that point where you go into a match and you think they're going to probably run away with it, and they do, and then he gets the fourth goal on this one to seal it, or I guess it was already done by that point. But yeah, I'm really interested in tracking him and seeing, as we were talking about these guys that have gone abroad. I'm watching all of his matches in MLS now because I'm interested to see how his development goes, and then ultimately if and when and where he's going to go.
And where will he play if he does go? I think that's a big question mark with Brendan Aaronson. Like, what is his position? Where is he most effective? It'll certainly depend on the team, but that's the conversation we're having every week basically right now with Gianluca Busio. He was a quote-unquote 10. He had some good moments there with Kansas City with different guys being out, but now he looks like a different player, at least positionally, and he looks like a different player. I mean, some of the things that were not his strengths higher up the field are now his strengths, and I just love that he sees this opportunity, strikes a good ball, and maybe the goalkeeper should do better in this situation. But it's just another feather in his cap, and I give a lot of credit to Mateus Almeida. I give a lot of credit to Peter Vermees and others, and of course Jim Curtin, in sort of the way, Oscar Pareja, and the way that they're bringing these guys along, because it would have been easy at times if you're Kansas City with the expectations that they have to just say, we'll get a more experienced player in there for Gianluca Busio. Like we went and signed Gadi Kinda. I know we're missing Gutierrez, but we have veterans in this roster who can fill those holes. We have deep lying midfielders. We're paying a lot of money in Ilie and Roger Espinoza. So I credit these coaches, and Lucci's another one, for seeing and being patient with some of these players. And I just hope, as you said, Doyle, that continues, that the foresight of mistakes now is profit or is production or is whatever it is down the line. I mean, I think Jalen Lindsey's a good example. I know they're forced into it right now because the left back is out for Kansas City, so he has to play. But he had like a bad game a couple games ago. Like
he
had a bad game.
Yeah.
Like, and you could see Peter Vermees being like, can't afford it, yank him, get somebody else in there, whatever, and he didn't do it. You got to let these players play through some of these struggles early on, and you hope
like
that
Reggie Cannon did
dividends
like
down the road.
Oh,
look, is that a transition?
Segue, yeah.
Oh, that's a nice transition. By the way, we've been watching Reggie Cannon, seeing what's going to go happen with him. Tom Boga reported after the Third Degree confirmed that FC Dallas and Boavista in Portugal have a deal in place for Reggie. He was not around this weekend. Apparently, he was traveling to Portugal. If you don't know about Boavista, it has been sort of a clearinghouse for the last year for Lille. You recognize them. Jonathan David, Timothy Weah, second mention of the show. But they're reportedly about to buy the owner at Lille, 51% in Boavista. So it would basically be like a developmental hub for them to send players before they make that jump to Lille. Maybe there's not enough. Maybe there's not opportunity at Lille, whatever it might be. But it's a place for players to get games. We had a scouting report from Thiago Estevao, who is the legend on Twitter. Boavista have been basically the Portuguese Burnley, he says, over the last few years. Defensive, tough to beat, man to watch, solidly mid-table. They've now partnered with Lille, who've dropped a bunch of good loanees on them, brought in a good young attacking coach, and have a new project. So that sounds good. This sounds like the sort of place that you would want to be if you're Reggie Cannon, Dave. Like, when you hear about this what seems to be more of a report at this point as opposed to rumor, it seems like it's going to get done. How does that make you feel? How should Reggie Cannon feel about something like this?
There's a process to it, right? He knows the connection. He's having the conversations, I think, with Lille about what these steps are. I don't think Reggie Cannon's leaving FC Dallas to go play for Boa Vista. That's not the point for him. And I think he could potentially play at a higher level. But to what we've seen that's gone on for a lot of young players is what's the steps? It's not what is the next move. It's where do I want to be in 3 to 4 years and how can I get there? And that's what this process is for him. It's let me get to Europe. Let me show I can play in a different environment. Let me show I can take, maybe it's not a competitive step up in every game from MLS in Portugal, but he's going to get to play against a Benfica and a Lisbon and a Porto. He's going to get to show what he can do outside of the FC Dallas system. And then from there, the next few moves that he can go. So yeah, it's not the move. It's not Weston McKennie to Juve. No one who's a U.S. national team fan is going to buy a Boa Vista jersey and be like, we made it. It's all happening. But it's part of the process. And to what we've said, it's great that Weston McKennie went and is kind of leading a trail, but FC Dallas hasn't exactly shown we develop young players, we sell them, they're immediately successful in Europe at this level, and it goes from there. Reggie Cannon's kind of building the road for everyone, so he kind of has to take a weird path to start to develop it. For Jonathan Gomez, who already left FC Dallas but isn't there yet, Johan Gomez, it's going to be easier to follow his path. Potentially for Brian Reynolds, it might be easier going forward, but for Reggie, it's the first move.
I mean, look, I like it. I think Reggie is being smart about it, and I think about somebody like a Michael Bradley who goes to an Aaronson, and this is a long time ago. Yeah, but that same sort of like intermediate move. You go there, you adapt, you show you have that ability, you thrive, hopefully, and then you make the jump. You don't have to be at Boa Vista for 4 years. This doesn't have to be a long-term thing. In fact, it probably should be a short-term thing if you're Reggie Cannon. But it's the right time in his career, and it's the right time to go. I hope the move gets done for him. I hope we see him at Lille in a year and a half, 2 years, tearing it up in Ligue 1. I hope we see him make the climb that I think he's capable of making. I hope we see that for every American player. I hope we see Paxton Pomykal healthy soon, man. Yeah. Third degree reporting that those pesky hip/adductor/core injuries he's been dealing with could lead to surgery. We know we've seen him on sort of a short leash with Lucci. He hasn't been starting. I mean, this is one of those things. It's like, damn, it's just sucks.
It does. Lucci said this is a different procedure. Well, let me read you the quotes because we had him on site. I think Lucci talked after the game the other day. He said he, being Pomykal, hasn't had any surgery yet, but it's a very strong discussion and very possible. So we're just preparing for that. This could hold him out for the whole season. This is not ideal for the team, but you saw other guys step up. Fafa Picault was excellent for them this weekend. We've been trying to manage him, Pomykal, with minutes and have freshness, but it was too painful to continue. And we support him 100%. It's a hip procedure that he would have. I think last year was a hernia issue.
That's what it was.
It stinks. I think I think Pomykal is a Weston McKennie level central midfielder. I think he you drop him into most teams in Europe. If he was healthy, he would start. But this is you just have some bad breaks, and you hope that whatever happens here fixes the problem permanently, and we get 10 healthy years out of the kid.
I mean, I remember when did we have Paxton on this show, Dave? And we were talking to him before or after, and he was saying like, yeah, it really hurts. Like, I'm playing through it, but this is really difficult for me. And you never heard him complain. This has been sort of a niggling thing for a long time. You never heard him complain, but we'll see now, whether or not surgery or otherwise. It seems like maybe this year is one for him to get his body right and try to focus on 2021. But it's unfortunate for him. Let's talk about LAFC, the nightcap last night. We had some good tweets because people definitely think that we give LAFC a lot of benefit of the doubt. Galactico.
How convenient that there's a second team in LA when the Galaxy got bad. Weeby had a new favorite team that he could always
Why
love.
Is this always on me? As if I'm the only one out here like speaking well of LAFC on this show. No, none of you guys said anything positive about LAFC.
Nah, dude.
Nah, it's you. My shoulders are broad, baby. Heap it all on me. Heap it all on me. LA Galactico.
Is it going out on a limb to say LAFC have been good?
Yeah,
I'm very
Kalen, it's coastal bias. That's what it is.
Yeah, okay.
It's fake love.
Makes sense.
Hollywood.
Anyway, LA Galactico says this to say. I wonder who he roots for. Let's see what excuses Extra Time comes up to justify this result for LAFC. Isaac Anderson. So is LAFC now firmly in the market for a starting quality MLS goalkeeper? Maybe throw center back into that as well. Back-to-back losses. They did not look great in this game. Bob Bradley came out and had quite a quote, we're going through a very difficult stretch. We have a lot of guys who are not in good form and who are mentally just not where they need to be. That is not what he has been saying about this team for the last 2 years. Carlos Vela, of course, not around. We don't know when he's going to be back. Kenneth Vermeer, camped out in the middle of his 18-yard box watching Golazos go over his head. Center back depth, not great. Like, what's going on with LAFC right now? Like, what's the diagnosis?
My take is that this team is built, with a system, but as much as you can say how great a system is, if you change one or two small pieces to that system, a lot of it can fall apart. And I think having no Atuesta has probably been maybe the biggest piece that's been missing lately. And then Carlos Vela was able to, we know what he does as well, but they were able to withstand actually probably Vela in ways that they weren't able to with Atuesta. And then you look at Walker Zimmerman leaving, and then you look at Tyler Miller gone.
Well, he didn't leave; he got traded. So, let's put some on that one.
Which is just it.
But you name an MLS team that can lose the MVP of the league and a best 11 player, and go on and contend at a high level.
Yeah, they can, but they're also giving up 2.5 goals a game. They got rid of Tyler Miller. They downgraded, frankly, at goalkeeper, getting rid of Tyler Miller. They never replaced Steven Beitashour, who they just let walk. And they traded Walker Zimmerman. And if there's one thing that we should have all learned over the past 5-10 years, after Columbus let Chad Marshall go, after we saw what happened to the Galaxy after they let Omar Gonzalez go, after what happened to Sporting Kansas City after they let Ike go, is that if you have a best 11 caliber center back in his prime, you hold on to them. Would I have traded Walker Zimmerman for $1 million of allocation money? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I would have given him a 5-year contract, made him very rich, and said, okay, I don't have to worry about this position until 2025. Not having clear downgrades at center back, right back, and goalkeeper, and then missing Atuesta on top of it, and none of the guys who have come in, whether it's Cifuentes or Ginella, have really been able to do any of the things that have made Atuesta so special. There is no excuse. There is no justification for the way LAFC got murked last night. There's just the explanation that this is who LAFC is. You can go right at them and you can score 3 goals on them. And if they're not clicking in attack, they can't score 3 goals on you. And nothing more needs to be said.
Yeah, I was going to say, nobody? No? Okay. All right. Fine. What about Seattle? What'd you see from them?
I think it's a bad matchup for them as well, too. And Seattle, we've seen what they were able to do against, the previous LAFC team. And I think, especially when you look at some of those weaknesses and where those spots are that Doyle just mentioned, that's kind of bread and butter for where Seattle is going to come and hurt you. And we saw that with Jordan Morris and Rui Diaz. And we've seen it with those two in the past. The way that they're able to, Rui Diaz is able to exploit that space, just sort of in that pocket between the center backs, and then Jordan Morris, when he gets going out wide. If you're not aware and not able to account for his pace and behind, he's gonna hurt you, and he's gonna hurt you fast. 2 goals in 2 minutes, I think. So, Seattle has been rolling. We didn't see the best of them in MLS's back, but I thought João Paulo coming back into the side would help. And then just getting those guys just fit, healthy. And these last 2 games, we have seen, this is the MLS champions. This is the returning champions. So, and got a group that wants to be better throughout the regular season. And I don't see why they wouldn't be able to continue this run of form and move all the way through the top and make a real push for the Supporter Shield.
If Jordan Morris plays this way, they're a different team, because you have Rui Diaz, who's one of the best finishers in MLS, and you have Lodero, who does everything. But there's times in the game where he drops deep and helps defend. And there was moments in this LAFC game where they clear that ball and it comes to Jordan Morris, who fills in space under Rui Diaz and can start a counterattack that just didn't exist when you didn't have that other player to do it for them. And they brought in Rodriguez. He didn't really do it. But now Jordan Morris' ability to everything Kalen said. He can beat you 1v1. He can create chances going to the end line or cut inside and score himself. But he can also float in and help set people up. His understanding of what's going on around him on the field, on top of his touch getting cleaner, has allowed him to become a whole different player. And there's a lot of what's gone on. Steve Zakuani wrote a great piece about it for MLSsoccer.com. A guy who was a winger in Seattle has worked with him. And he put in full credit to Jordan Morris. Jordan Morris was a raw player coming out of college who was super exciting at center forward. He is now one of the most dangerous wingers as a true winger when he wants to be in MLS. And I didn't see that coming. And it has changed what Seattle can do on the field. It's given them a whole new weapon that they can add to everything else they already have and they pay so much money for on the other parts of the field. And it puts them in that space where, yeah, they won MLS Cup last year, but like they might be more dangerous now with the group that they have up there.
By the way, the Shane O'Neill that we thought might emerge when he was a young player at the Rapids appears to be, at least in the short term right now, emerging. So that's a huge positive. I said in the short term appears to be. I mean, there were some qualifiers.
Tariq Mohammed or Amir Tariq started a few games in MLS this year at center back. Like, you get a couple games. The way he reacted to that Cifuentes play, his hand was up and he stopped running 60 yards from goal and was like, I'm out of this play. So
have you ever tried chasing Jordan Morris before?
No.
You might as well raise a hand. That's all you got.
Zakuani, you buried his money quote here because he said that Jordan Morris is the second best attacking player in MLS. That is a hell of a claim. And I'm assuming
Steve was in Seattle when he wrote that. So
yeah. I mean, who would you put above Jordan Morris right now?
Well, Bella and Joseph, I don't think can be counted right now.
Why not?
Right? They're injured. They don't play right now. He said right now.
Okay, fine. Okay. So take those two out. Who's better then? I mean,
Pavone.
Okay.
I would take Pozuelo. Pozuelo is maybe my favorite player in the league to watch right now.
I would probably take Lodero.
Yeah,
I don't think it's far off though. I think he's in that conversation for sure.
For sure.
Yes. Let's go.
For sure. But it's I don't think I think that when the game gets compact and Seattle are facing a team that's sort of bunkered in, Jordan Morris doesn't have a ton of ways to hurt you. He's not a guy who can unlock a set defense. He's a guy that could, blow open a stretched and ragged defense, and he's excellent at it. But there's more rounding out to his game that still needs to come. To the kid's credit, he's improved every single year that he's been in the league. So this might not be his peak.
You talk about Pavone. I just want to. My LA Galaxy shrine has not worked for years. I've been lighting the candles. I've been pouring a little Chianti or a little mezcal, a little something.
I think it would be Malbec.
Working now, baby.
I think it's an Argentine wine. It would be Malbec. Chianti is an Italian wine.
Oh, okay, fine. What changed? Is it just like I thought LAFC was maybe LAFC not looking that great, and they were like, we'll play some soccer, but I didn't know if it would be long term. Like it's not perfect, but it's so far away from the imperfections that they have been for so long now. I mean, what's going on with the Galaxy, Doyle?
I think two things. In attack, they have stopped bringing their fullbacks all the way up, planting them on the touchline and saying, hit 30 crosses a game. So they're actually using all that skill they have to try to combine a little bit and generate higher quality chances. It's not, like you said, it's not perfect, but it's a solid plan that they're executing at an above average level against the Quakes. Because of the way the Quakes play, you can make it into a weak link game. And Tommy Thompson's been really good, but Tommy Thompson defending against Christian Pavone 1v1 is a mismatch every single time, and the Galaxy were able to exploit that. Defensively, it was a very simple thing. It was getting Leonardo Gonzalez out of the lineup. You can't, and it's the same thing as with Seattle getting Xavier Arriaga out of the lineup. Like you're right, Gasman. I think there's a reason to be skeptical about Shane O'Neill, but Shane O'Neill is probably like a league average center back, and going from a guy who's giving up just based off of simple preventable mistakes, giving the other team 2 goals a game to a league average center back is a massive upgrade. And it seems like going from Leonardo Gonzalez to
Giancarlo Gonzalez, I'm like super confused. There's like 5 different Galaxy center backs over the years that were getting melded together, and I was like,
No,
AJ Leonardo or like
Sorry to the Seattle Sounder legend, left back legend, Leonardo Gonzalez. Giancarlo Gonzalez was a disaster. He's been a disaster for the Galaxy for the past year, and replacing him with Nick DePuy, who came through Los Dos and who has been mistake-free in his 4 games. Like, if you're not giving 2 goals away every single game that you don't have to give away, you're going to get better results. And that combined with just being a little more methodical and a little more strategic with how they want to use the ball has been the difference for the LA Galaxy over these past couple games.
All right. If you want us to talk about your team, as always, extra time at MLSsoccer.com, 401-2060-MLS. There's a lot of teams in this league now. There's a lot of games. We can't do 4-hour podcasts. We got to keep it rolling. Let's look ahead real quick. There are 2 rounds of MLS Predict 6 presented by BetMGM this week. 2 chances to play. That's because the games are coming thick and fast. Tuesday and Wednesday night is round 10, so get your picks in ASAP. Let's take a quick look at Atlanta-Miami. I think that's the most fun from the 6 that we have up, although you do have LAFC San Jose and Portland, LA, and Toronto, Montreal, etc. Who you got in this game, Kalen? Atlanta, losers to Orlando. Miami still kind of scuffling, trying to figure out what and who they are. Who you got?
Man, this one's a toss-up for me. Atlanta looked pretty terrible, but then the week before they looked pretty good. I'm going to go with Miami. I think things are trending up for them, and I just think really shaky right now. I don't know. I can't trust Atlanta right now, so I'm going to go Miami.
Hey, what do you think, Doyle, about Gonzalo Higuain and Luis Suarez to Miami?
I'm not a fan. If you've watched Miami the past, every game they've played, it's like they need a playmaker. Like Rodolfo Pizarro has been a very good attacking player in this league, but he's not a guy who's going to unlock defenses. He's not a guy who racks up a lot of assists. I think he's more of a secondary type of player, almost like what Victor Rodriguez was when he was healthy last year for Seattle. They need their Lodero, right? They don't have that. So I like, as great as Luis Suarez and Gonzalo Higuain and Edinson Cavani are, like, how good will those guys be if there's nobody creating chances for them in the first place?
They also came into Nashville. They sat so deep. And I get, like, you're traveling, the schedule's condensed, but you're playing against a team that hasn't scored a goal. Yeah. Or has struggled to score goals. And they sat really deep. And I think on top of just having the quality, if you bring in a high-level 10 and what Lodero kind of did for Seattle, it's going to change the culture of, like, confidence, ability to play a little bit higher, people to want to be on the ball, to take guys on. It just felt very passive from Miami against Nashville. And I think right now, whatever the results are, you want to see the performances progress. You want to see from Miami a team that wants to play with the ball, that wants to be exciting when there are fans back, when fans can come to the stadium for the first time, that are entertaining, that enjoy the game. And you haven't seen that for large stretches. And I think it goes down to talent on one level, but also just what they want to do on the field. And I don't think they have an understanding either. So I take Atlanta in this game. Atlanta's just PT right now. If he's good, they're going to win. If he's bad, they're not. It's not his fault. It's the rest of the team around him. Hasn't been strong enough, but I'm going to take a flyer on PT this week.
And that's why I'm going Miami, because as you said, I think Miami will look at PT and say, we don't got to stretch ourselves in this game. If we stretch ourselves, it's the only way Atlanta is going to threaten us. So let's be a little bit more conservative and trust that we're going to get a couple chances against them because they've been giving them up and they have some injuries in that back line. I'm going to take Miami, probably a 1-0, 2-1 win for them. Doyle, what's your pick on this?
I'm taking Miami as well. I think that Atlanta is just so error prone and they're so loose on the ball through central midfield. Miami will be able to get on those turnovers and get into transition and put a couple in the back of the net.
You guys are very excited about those line splitting Will Trapp Victor Ulloa passes off the turnovers.
Yo, Victor Ulloa can ball. Okay, Victor Ulloa can hit those passes.
All right, give me the best in the mailbag, Dave, and we'll get out of here.
Whoa. Caught me off guard there. Well, this one's for Doyle. How good would Nashville be if they'd taken DK with the second pick? Jared in Milwaukee on that.
I think that he would help a lot, because not necessarily because of the goal scoring, but because he would give structure to their attack in the same way that he gave structure to Orlando City's attack this past weekend without Nani and without Mauricio Pereira and without Sebastian Mendez and without Juan. He's so good in hold-up play, and he's such a good passer that you can play through him, and he can make your wingers better. And none of the number 9s that Nashville brought in have shown the ability to do that, and so they're struggling a lot generating any sort of consistent attack from open play.
Anything else?
No, that's all you got. Yeah.
All right. Hit us up 401-206-0MLS. Big thanks to Brian Dunseth for joining us, walking us through a complicated situation with Real Salt Lake. Enjoy your week, everybody. Enjoy the soccer. There's so much. MLS MLS Predict 6 presented by BetMGM. It's a mouthful. I'm still getting back into it. Go get your picks in. I am not currently doing well with MLS Fantasy, and I'm getting your tweets saying that I'm not upsetting or resetting my lineup, but like I can barely stay showered at this point, so cut me a break. For those of you playing, good luck this week and enjoy the soccer, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday.